Part of the ION Radio Network. IPMNation.com.
Professor Brian Ogstad from the Anarcho-Capitalist Cast joins me tonight again so I can ask him a few more questions about economics. And then we'll get into the debate a little bit. I'll talk about my thoughts on tonight's Republican debate. Surprisingly tame and civil. It looks like Trump is pivoting for the general election. It's about that time. So it is, speaking of about that time, it's 11 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone on March 10th, 2016. And we are live. Matt Connarton Unleashed starts right now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Everybody, welcome. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live on IPM Nation 2 and, of course, OTR FM. Debate night. I'll get into that a little bit later. Republican debate. It was interesting, but for different reasons than the previous ones have been. And we have joining us via Skype tonight, Professor Brian Ogstad returns. Brian, are you there?
Hey, Matt.
Oh, good. I can hear you loud and clear. Awesome.
Good.
We can get a. I was rushing to get on the air, so we didn't have a chance to do any kind of a test beforehand, but you sound great. So welcome back. And you are, of course, the host of the, am I saying it correctly, the Anarcho-Capitalist Cast?
I'm close. Anacro. It's a play on anarcho, but I use anacro, which I know I've only had 2 people catch that so far. So I kind of wait and see who actually catches that. Right. But anacro, meaning out of chronological order.
Yes.
So basically, it's a play saying, capitalism is out of place in today's time with our current political system.
And we do have those in rotation on both IPM Nation 1 and 2, and they're usually about 5 or 6 minutes long, and they pop up in the rotation there. People can listen to them, and you just released a new one, correct?
Oh, I did. Yes, a new one. The one I just did most recently is called Vices Are Not Crimes, taken from Lysander Spooner's short essay.
And now I haven't had a chance to listen to that yet, unfortunately, nor have I read that essay you are referring to, but I'm going to make a guess. Tell me if I'm right. I assume that it discusses how, things like, for example, the possession and use of cannabis should not be a felony.
Right. Yeah. Basically, Spooner lays it out. I do it much shorter because I want to keep the podcast to 5 minutes for people that just get something really quick. Yeah. But I get right to the point. Basically, it is the vices do not hurt anybody. They hurt no person or no property. And the essence of what crime is to harm another person or harm another person's property. So, in essence, if you're doing something that's causing no harm to anybody or their property, it is really not a crime, and people should just leave you alone. That doesn't mean we necessarily agree with what everybody's doing. We don't have to, but we don't have the right to use coercion or force against them to get them to stop either.
Absolutely.
The harm comes if somebody actually hurts somebody.
Right.
That's where the focus needs to be.
Sometimes people on the other side of that argument will kind of will say to me, well, what about, if someone is involved in these vices and it leads them to, just as an example, and again, this is an example that they would use, to burglarize a home or something because they need money to pay for more of whatever their vice is or something. And that's how these things lead to crime that does hurt someone. And my response always is, well, fine then, whatever that crime is, the actual crime where someone is victimized, if someone gets mugged or someone's burglarized or stolen from in some way, that is what they should be prosecuted for, the actual trespass on another person's well-being and stealing from them, not the vice itself. Millions of people every day use cannabis and don't go out and rob anyone,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Most people are just like everybody else. They're peaceful. They don't want to hurt anybody. They just want to go about their business. No different than maybe having a couple of beers. So they should be left alone. But that's not to say that someone who may not drink occasionally may drive and cause an accident. But it is the true harm. And we can, drinking and driving may be another touchy subject. But actually, harm is the real problem. Is when somebody actually harms somebody. And I think the government actually does more harm by just flat out telling people they can't do something, because then basically it removes the ability for someone to think about the issue and whether this is actually something good for them or not.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a great harm.
Right. It just forces the whole thing underground. It creates I don't think we use the term much anymore, but a black market for these things. And, too, some of my friends who are pro-drug war will say, we can't. Well, for one thing, they're just convinced that cannabis is evil, but they also really kind of believe this fallacy that it being illegal prevents some people from engaging in it. And I always say, well, then why do we have this mass incarceration of low-level drug offenders if it being illegal actually stops anybody from doing it? It doesn't make any sense. No,
yeah, absolutely. And I think the best argument against that sort of statement is the prohibition. Mm-hmm. Prohibition. I mean, there's been a lot of good studies out about that since. And most economists, realize that actually, prohibition caused more harm than it did good.
Right.
That's the best example, I think.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I had a couple of specific things. We had a great conversation the last time you were on, and then it was kind of one of those things where almost immediately after I'm thinking, oh, you know what? I should have asked him about this, and I should have asked him about that. Okay. But I want to ask you about, and I had mentioned this in a message to you on Facebook, that I wanted to get your opinion on how much does a president actually affect the United States economy, because my theory has always been that really probably not much. People I think have kind of an overinflated idea of how much power the executive actually has. I mean, my view of it is that the president, he's commander in chief of the military and obviously has tremendous control over our foreign policy, but domestically, it's more of a bully pulpit kind of thing, and I don't think he really has much influence. But I wanted to really get your view on that.
I tend to agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, if you look at the Constitution, the article, I think it's Article 2, where it expresses the duties of the president. I mean, if you read through that list, there's like nothing there that really gives them much power over the economy. Like you said, they have power over the military. And I think maybe I guess there's only two in there that I could even think of that would even in a roundabout way give them power, which is one is that in times of emergency that Congress can give the president authority to act over the economy. So, they may in a roundabout way get power over the economy that way. And sometimes we see that, presidents saying, oh, well, this is a time of crisis, therefore I need to act. I can't wait. Mm-hmm. So we may see something like that. And the other one I think that I can think of where I think they may actually be able to control the economy maybe would be by issuing executive orders. But those will be, I think, for the most part, those will be pretty small. Can't manipulate and affect it to a great deal. But you're right, though. I think we have this impression because the way it's always talked about, the presidents are held in such a high position in the United States, where we look and say, well, this president, we had, brought down the deficit under this president, or unemployment fell under this president, giving them credit when really they may not have had a whole lot to do with it, but they just happened to be in office at the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They get the credit or they get the blame. We're already up against a break. Brian, can you stick around for another segment?
You bet.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Thank you. Because I do want to delve into this a little bit more. So we're chatting tonight with Professor Brian Ogstad, and he is one of the newer members of the IPM Nation family, and very happy to have him as a part of that. And we are live. And before we go to the break, just a quick reminder, if anyone wants to chime in tonight, if you have a question or a comment about anything, 617-917-4IPM, 617-917-4476. You can call or text at that number, and we would be happy to talk to you. Of course, we have the chat room open, too, at ipmnation.com/live2. And we are live from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio, powered by Ambit Energy. More to come. Don't go away.
IPMNation.com.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Join Elliot Jolish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jolish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jolish Hour. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
IPMNation.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live tonight on IPM Nation 2, as we are 5 nights a week at 11 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, Tuesday and Thursday nights, we have the honor and privilege of also being on OTR FM, the premium channel on the OMTimes Radio Network. And joining us via Skype, he has agreed to stick around, Professor Brian Ogstad. And so, Brian, are there some ways, we were talking about, how much power or influence the president actually has over the economy. What about, I don't know how closely you've been following it, but Donald Trump talks a lot about, and he talked about it in the debate tonight. I don't know if you saw any of it, but he's always talking about trade deals, and he's going to renegotiate all the trade deals, and China is ripping us off, and they manipulate their currency and all that. And I always wonder, does he, in your estimation, is there anything to what he says, or is he just kind of throwing a lot of stuff out there that sounds good?
Well, yeah, that's one in Article 2. That is one of the areas where the president can actually affect. They have the power. They are the sole. They are the branch. The executive branch is the branch that has the power to make treaties with foreign nations. So yeah, they can place tariffs and quotas and make restrictions with foreign governments. But all that does is act as impediments to trade, because really truly governments don't trade. It's individuals within nations which trade with each other. If I want to buy something from China, I don't trade with the government of China. I go online and I find something I want, and they have the best deal and the best quality, whatever I'm looking for, so I buy it from them. Mm-hmm. And then we have to deal with all of the regulation and taxes in order to make our transaction happen. So really all they do when they say that is just try to get in the way of people freely trading. So if I was Trump, I would say, yeah, a better deal would be just to tear down all the restrictions, the impediments like tariffs and quotas, and let people freely trade.
That's interesting. Ted Cruz tonight during the debate seemed to indicate that, he felt that these additional tariffs that Trump was proposing would make things worse, not mm-hmm. better. But it's interesting what you're saying. So yeah, get rid of them entirely.
Yes. Tariffs, increasing tariffs would make it worse. That is true.
What is is there any other way where the president does directly influence the economy, do you think? I mean, one thing I wanted to ask you about with that mm-hmm. too is a lot of people kind of blamed when Jimmy Carter was president. He made that famous malaise speech. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people think that when you have the president of the United States sounding really kind of defeated and desperate, that affects the economy in sort of a psychological way. It has a bad effect.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think that's absolutely right. That's the whole psychological side of it, right? When someone stands up and is preaching doom and gloom, we tend to think the worst. If they're positive about the future and about tomorrow, we're more optimistic about it. So I think that's true. And I also think the other thing that comes to mind when you say that, and I think you alluded to it, there's all kinds of latent power, hidden power that the president has, to get things done that we don't necessarily see. Because I think the two true ways the economy, that affects the economy is taxes and spending. That's one. Then the other one is through the money supply, which would be the Federal Reserve. So those are the true, but that's true that the president works with the Fed, works with the legislature to try to get things done. Although he can't directly make them happen, he needs the legislature to pass tax cuts or tax increases. He needs, Janet Yellen at the Fed to, increase the money supply or retract it if he wants to slow things down. But so yeah, the latent aspect of it and trying to use his power to get them to act in the way he wants them to act is there, sure.
Let me ask you this too regarding the unemployment rate. Is it time to stop using that as any kind of economic barometer and maybe kind of pivot more to, as some people have, it would appear, toward really focusing more on the labor participation rate? Is the unemployment rate kind of a dead issue? I mean, I know it's gone down. It's low right now. And so, of course, some people see that as a victory, but then others say, well, that really does not tell the true story of the work situation.
Right. There's so many hidden things going on. I mean, it would take too long probably to talk about it, and it probably would not be all that interesting, except for maybe to me and a few others. But when you really break down what these things measure, like the unemployment rate, there's only a certain time frame. And once people fall out of that time frame, they're no longer measured. Right. Or there's people who get discouraged and they can't find a job, so they quit looking. and they would still be unemployed. And there's people who are self-employed who maybe their business closed, so now they are technically unemployed, but they wouldn't be counted. So yeah, there's things like that that really don't make a lot of these numbers very accurate, I would say. And then I always very skeptical of them too, because the government does their own reporting of these numbers, and of course it's in their best interest and their incentive to show them in the most positive light. So I'm always very skeptical. Whatever they report, is it as accurate as what they're saying it is? Not putting aside all the errors in looking at the numbers. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, when any of the economic indicators that we use, I think that their main benefit to us is just as a yardstick to say this is where it was and now it's here. Okay. The actual numbers behind it can be fuzzy and obfuscated, kind of hidden, but we can at least use it as a yardstick to see if it's moving in the right direction or not.
Yeah. How do you feel about the economy right now?
I think it's chugging along okay, but I think it's only due to the fact of the Fed continuing along the lines with the money supply. As long as the Fed keeps pumping new money out, keeps increasing the money supply, the economy will continue to do okay. It may not be super great, but it'll continue to move ahead, and everyone will feel comfortable. The minute that slows down, though, that's when we'll fall into another recession. It's kind of like a bubble and bust, and the bubbles are created by massive increases of money creation, and eventually the government's got to slow it down because they know they do. Because if we have so much inflation, if you look at we all know inflation happens because prices are rising, then most people that I talk to want to, all they blame it on is like, oh, it's prices are rising, it's the market, people are, but really it's, prices only rise because of new money creation. So when the government creates more money is chasing fewer goods. And when that happens, prices go up when we get inflation. And it just gets out of hand.
So not to get doom and gloom, but there are I've heard people who ascribe to various economic theories. I've heard people over the last few years say that ultimately this whole global economic system that we have is destined to, at some point, hopefully not in the near future, but it is destined to sort of collapse in on itself because of debt. What do you think?
Sure. I think eventually that'll happen, but I think but here's the upside, I guess, if there is an upside to that.
Yeah.
Because I don't really like the way the system is. But the only upside is, especially here in America, we're very productive. We're very have a spirit of entrepreneurialism, looking for new ways and better ways to do things, create new products, be more efficient, be more productive. So as long as, like I said, it's a tremendous upside for us, and those places around the world that are that way, I think they'll survive it a little better, because as long as we can outpace the government spending and inflation, we will at least be okay. And that's kind of what we do now. We're more productive than the money creation and inflation that the government causes. So as long as we outpace it, we're okay. The minute we don't outpace it, then we're starting to go into retrogression and maybe recession and depression.
Okay. Well, that was sort of reassuring. Sounded...
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it though. I mean, the best thing would be to eventually phase it out and get to some sort of system of sound money. That would be, in my opinion, the best way to go. And then we wouldn't have these wild swings that we have. We have these boom and bust periods, like in 2001 with the internet bubble and bust, and then in 2007 with the housing bubble and bust. It's the same thing. We get lots of new money, speeds it up, then the government's got to slow it down. They got to quit pushing the money out there because they don't want to have the risk of hyperinflation. So they got to slow the money down, retract the economy, and then we fall into recession. And I will say this, the government has increased the money supply over 5 times since 2007. So that means, that they're heading to a point, I think, where they got to start retracting it somehow. And so I think we may experience a little bit of a recession, but it's hard to say when, because nobody ever know when they're going to shut the spigot off.
Sure. One more question before we run out of time. It's kind of an economic third rail, but the debt limit, when that comes up, and now they fight over it, and they never used to, but it's become a politically charged issue. I always get very, very worried that we're actually going to default and send the global economy into economic Armageddon. More doom and gloom. Am I right to be afraid?
Yeah, I mean, not terribly, but not terribly.
Okay.
Because it kind of goes back to what I was just saying. As long as we're more productive, the government and we continue to expand and grow the economy at a faster rate, the government can still, create more money to pay off our creditors, which will keep the economy going, and we won't default. So I think as long as we can do that, but then the risk comes in of us, not the economy, the private sector, and people who are actually productive, not being able to keep pace with the spending. So that is the risk you're kind of talking about. But I don't see it as anything happening real soon, anything in our lifetime.
Oh, well, good. Well, that sounds really good then. Well, I feel better. So, Professor, we'll let you go. But before you go, in the few seconds we have left, please plug your podcast. I'll let you say the name again so I don't butcher it.
No, that's all right. You were close. You had an Anarcho instead of an Acro, but it's an Acro Capitalist Cast, and it is 5-minute pod blast. It's you can get it on Apple or on SoundCloud, or just listen to IPM Nation, and you can hear it.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Hi, this is Sylvia Henderson, intuitive life coach and energy healer. Are you ready to elevate and rise way above your normal? Be sure to listen to my show, Intuitive Transformations, on OMTimes Radio, Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern. Get the inspiration you need to transform your life.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
IPMNation.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed. We're live from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio in Manchester, New Hampshire, broadcasting worldwide on IPM Nation 2, and it's a Thursday night, so we're also on OTR FM. Of course, we're powered by Ambit Energy. You can find out how to save on your energy bills. Go to ipmnation.ambitrabbit.com. You'll be very glad that you did. And thank you again to Professor Brian Ogstad for joining us for a bit tonight. And we'll have to definitely want to get Brian into a regular rotation as far as being on the show, because I always learn from him, and he's fun to talk to. And he has a great podcast that we were talking about. It's they're only about 5 or 6 minutes long, so it's not a big time commitment. You can find those online, and of course we do have them in rotation on IPM Nation channels 1 and 2. Don't forget to this week's television edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed is up. Bonnie Wright joined me at the top of the show this week to discuss the GMO labeling legislation and all that is going on with that. And then she was with us for about 15 minutes or so, and then it was on to presidential politics. Bonnie is actually she recently got elected to I think it's the zoning board in Salem, New Hampshire. So she now holds public office, but she doesn't like to get into the politics on the show because she doesn't want to with what she's trying to do as far as GMO legislation, she doesn't want to turn the whole thing into a partisan thing because it's not exactly a partisan issue. I can tell you from my discussions with her on the show, it does seem that Democrats tend to be more in favor of it than Republicans, but there are a lot of Republicans who are also in favor of labeling for GMOs, and there are Democrats also who oppose it. So it's one of those issues. It's like the death penalty. Yeah, it tends to sort of skew. One party feels one way about it, the other does the other way. But there's a lot of crossover in both directions. It's one of those kinds of issues. So she tries to keep the partisanship out of it. So, but you can check that out. That is up. And let's see. Also, before that, I was on Ward 13 this week with John Hopwood. As I am most weeks, and that's up on YouTube as well. And that was largely a political conversation. Also, too, this week's Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is up. This week, John Heichel, who, by the way, is the owner and proprietor of Uptown Auto, because we broadcast from the Uptown Auto Repair Studio. John filled in for Gary on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. So it was John Heichel and I hosting this week. And our guest was Jack Kimball. And Jack came on to discuss the situation with Jerry DeLemus, which I've covered on this show, and we've covered a lot on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. Jerry DeLemus, of course, a New Hampshire resident who was recently grabbed by the FBI for his involvement in the Bundy Ranch standoff that happened about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Remember Cliven Bundy. So he actually had been on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades with Gary and I a few weeks ago, which I believe was his last media appearance before the FBI picked him up. So you can see that. That's up on our YouTube channel. And then you can see this week's show. Jack Kimball has been helping Jerry with his legal situation. And so that just went up actually earlier today. So you can watch that. That's available now. Don't go there yet. Wait till we're done here, obviously. But so lots of good stuff. I mean good stuff in terms of the shows. I don't mean good stuff as in what happened to Jerry. That's not good at all. So yeah, very very interesting. If you're even the slightest bit interested in that story, please. We really went in depth on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades on that this week. So, but on to more immediate matters. Tonight, another Republican debate. And I have to tell you, this one, pretty tame. I mean, I can't say I was bored with it. I was commenting on Facebook during the debate, as I always do on the Matt Connarton Unleashed page. But I got to tell you, this was very tame. It opened with Reince Priebus, head of the Republican National Committee, came out and basically gave, I think he only spoke for about 5 minutes, but basically came out, spoke to the crowd, and kind of reassured everybody that, look, we will support whoever the Republican nominee is, will be whoever, gets to that threshold of, 1237, I think, or something close to that. It's a little over 12,000. I think it's, or 1,200 rather, in terms of delegates. Whoever gets to that number will be the nominee and will have the party's support at the convention. And he seemed to be really trying to kind of tamp down on the all the speculation, all the talk about these sort of backroom meetings going on where they're trying to figure out, presumably, how to get this away from Trump at the convention if it comes to it, so they can get a more acceptable establishment candidate, so they can actually have a shot at winning. But he came out and seemed to try to allay all of that. I mean, he didn't make any promises that there wouldn't be a contested convention, but that seemed to be what he was trying to do. In other words, he seemed to be saying, look, if Trump is the nominee, he's the nominee, and we'll give him our full support and try to win. And then during the debate itself, Trump was much more reserved than usual. There was no calling Ted Cruz a liar. There was no belittling of Marco Rubio, calling him Little Marco. None of that. And of course, Kasich, he never really attacks, nor does Kasich attack him. But a very subdued Trump. And there were not attacks directly on him either. You know, Cruz and Rubio both stuck it to him a little bit, but not particularly aggressively, not nearly as aggressively as in previous debates. And Trump kind of took the high road for the most part. He didn't punch back really. It was definitely a much calmer Trump. Now, my theory is, and I'm sure more information on this will come out, but here's my theory. I don't think it's a coincidence that Reince Priebus came out and gave that little reassuring talk to everybody, and then Trump sort of does what would appear to be his general election pivot, where he now, where he knows he's got the nomination sewn up, so now he has to actually try to look vaguely presidential. so he's trying to kind of tone it down. I don't think that's any coincidence. So my theory is that Reince Priebus and Donald Trump probably at some point had a conversation, perhaps today, perhaps right before the debate, and perhaps an agreement was made. Perhaps Reince Priebus said something to the effect of, let's make a deal. Because, Trump likes to talk about making deals. I mean, my God, if there were a drinking game tonight where, if you had to take a drink every time Trump said the word deal, you'd probably be in a alcohol-induced coma by the end of the night. But I'm guessing that Priebus said to him, let's make a deal. I'm going to basically sort of tacitly endorse you or endorse your candidacy by going out and saying, whoever's the nominee, we will support, which obviously is code for, if you're the nominee, we'll support you. If you will just tone it down a little and try not to completely destroy the Republican Party during these debates. That's what I'm guessing happened. I also noticed too, though, now part of this might be, it's possible that none of that happened, that there was no deal, that there was no conversation. It's also possible that the tone of the debate was set early on where it wasn't going to be as acrimonious. Because I did notice something that with this particular debate, the questions, Jake Tapper was the lead moderator. Dana Bash was there asking questions. Hugh Hewitt, of course, was there. And I think was there one other person I'm forgetting? But I did notice that the questions were not as sort of, it's a word I'm looking for, provocative. It's not quite the right word, but, in previous debates, sometimes these debates would open with questions like, Senator Cruz, Donald Trump said this, or Mr. Trump, Marco Rubio said this about you. And, almost sort of kind of goading the candidates into arguing with each other, with these provocations of, well, this person said this about you and said this about what you said about that. And what do you say to them about this? And I noticed that the questions were not designed in that manner tonight. The questions were much more sort of focused on what is your opinion on this? What is your policy on this? There wasn't even a lot of, on this date you said this, do you still believe that, or how do you explain this? The questions were much more, they just weren't very provocative. So it's also possible that the only reason everything was so civil tonight is that the tone was set right at the outset for a very civil debate. Or it could be a combination of factors. I don't know. But I do know this. If Donald Trump really wants to be president and he really wants the Republican Party to support him, and there have been signals that he's kind of reached out to the establishment a little bit, then, yeah, he's got to rein it in. He's got to act more presidential. And I thought he did an okay job of that tonight. I did, let's see, one of the reasons I comment on Facebook while the debate is going, so I can kind of review the comments, and it reminds me of specific things that kind of jumped out at me. But, like I said, I mean, no sharp elbows tonight, really. I mean, I did at one point make a comment that sometimes Ted Cruz has kind of a subtle, clever way of mocking Trump, where you almost wonder if Trump even quite realizes he's being mocked, but he probably does. So when we come back, we'll kind of review some of my comments quickly, and maybe if I can find a good fact-checking article, we'll go over that too, because, I do love the fact-checking of the debates. There was, by the way, also over the weekend a Democratic debate, but not much news with that one. Just kind of more of the same. It was a little toned down as well. So I'm not even going to bother with that one, but we got one more segment to go. Stay with us. More Unleashed coming up.
IPMNation.com.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
IPMNation.com.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Matt Connarton Unleashed as we cruise into our final segment tonight. By the way, I think tomorrow night on the show, and our Friday night show is exclusively on IPM Nation 2. I think Slicko is going to be joining us. Slicko, the host of Slicko's World, he was supposed to be with us Tuesday night, and something kind of came up, and he got distracted with his kid, which is understandable. He's a young father, but so he's gonna. I think I will certainly confirm with him, but I think he's going to be with us tomorrow night. But really, Friday night's the best night for Slicko to come on anyway, because Friday nights it's kind of our let's just say if there's going to be a night that we're going to have Slicko on uncensored, it should be Friday. Let's put it that way. But his show, Slicko's World, which can be heard Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation 2. The new season begins April 17th. It will be the show will be moving to Sundays at 8 p.m. And it's going to be the week of 420, which no, it's not a coincidence. But he wants to move the show to Sundays, and the 20th doesn't fall on a Sunday, so close enough. So that's the plan. Let's see here. Politico has an article up. Trump's rivals pull their punches. HuffPost has an article up. Calm and scary. But let's look at we'll look at my Facebook comments quickly, because this will help me to, like I said, it helps me to remember specific things. Oh, by the way, I did post, no, actually, I think I posted it to my personal page. If you're a fan of bad lip reading, and if you don't know what it is, I'm not even going to explain it to you. Just go to YouTube and check it out. Just type in bad lip reading, and look up the Ted Cruz one. It's the best one yet. It's very, very funny. Let's see. Okay, but here's what I posted. So I said, I wonder why Reince Priebus didn't remind us all that Rubio's father was a bartender. I said, I hate opening statements, empty rhetoric for a room full of brainwashed lemmings to applaud, as though the words they just heard actually meant something. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of opening and closing statements. They're pointless. I said, campaign is taking its toll. Trump looks worn out. Yeah, I don't know if I'm imagining it, but I really kind of feel like with every debate, Trump just looks a little more worn out, a little tireder, a little more just older. I don't know. I said, John Kasich carries himself like a president, so obviously he can never be the nominee. By the way, yesterday on the television edition of Unleashed, because, I talk a lot about how John Kasich is obviously the best one, the best general election candidate they have, and I talk about how John Kasich was in the same position in 2012, the best general election candidate they had, and of course, the best candidate can't possibly get any traction in a Republican primary season. And then Don, who calls into the show occasionally, called in and said that he actually he's an independent, but he actually went and voted for John Kasich in the Republican primary. So, and then John Hopwood called into the show and said that back in 2012, even though he's a Democrat, he registered to vote in the Republican primary and voted for John Huntsman. So I thought that was interesting. Let's see. I said Rubio seems like he knows what he's talking about on H-1B visas. This was a trend tonight, by the way, where, Trump would talk in his typical vagaries, we're going to make America great. We're going to make deals. I'm going to make this deal and that deal, lots of deals. And Rubio would speak about things in a substantive manner, like he actually knew what he was talking about. And the H-1B visas was one of those examples. So I said, Rubio seems like he knows what he's talking about on H-1B visas. And then my next comment was, and then completely misses the point of the follow-up question. I don't remember what that was exactly, but I remember Rubio just kind of repeated his first answer. I said, Trump looks exhausted. He's a notorious non-sleeper. Yeah, Donald Trump, he's always, for as long as I can remember, he's always claimed he only sleeps 4 hours a night and does not have any caffeine. He's allegedly never even had a cup of coffee. He's just so anti-drug, he won't even touch caffeine. Let's see. I said, the position of Ted Cruz's eyebrows cause him to look perpetually surprised. It's all in the brows. He always looks surprised. I said, so far, no insults, no talking over each other. What the hell is going on here? Then I said, Kasich's answer on education sounded great, except I don't get how he thinks Common Core is relevant to what he's doing. Yeah, John Kasich is and this is something where I would disagree with John Kasich. He's in favor of Common Core, seems to think it's a good thing. And he gave a very interesting and detailed answer about education, but he kind of left Common Core out of his answer. So I'm a little confused there. I said Rubio is doing very well tonight. I said Trump avoids specifics like I avoid olives. I hate olives. I said sometimes Trump sounds like he's just pulling words out of the air at random and putting them into sentences that have little to do with the question. Let's see. I said, though Trump is speaking some truth on bidding and saving money that way, he's right about that. I said, it's starting to simmer a little. Trump's still playing it cool, but he's ready to unleash on Cruz. Well, I turned out to be wrong about that. I don't remember specifically what that was about, but there was the first real strong hints of dissension on something where it looked like the insults might finally start flying between Cruz and Trump, and it didn't quite happen. I said Trump correct on job statistics. That was something where, and Brian and I were talking about that earlier in the show. You know, the unemployment rate is actually very good right now. We have a great unemployment rate in this country, but what's it really mean? Again, if the labor I can't say it. If the labor participation rate sucks, then does a good unemployment rate really mean that much? Let's see. Then I said, is Trump consciously restraining himself? Is this his general election pivot? He was very restrained tonight. He even himself commented at one point. He said, I'm amazed at how civil things are tonight. I said, Cruz is right on the folly of Trump's rhetoric. Yeah, this is where Cruz was really kind of taking it to Trump, and Trump really wasn't punching back. Trump was holding back, but Cruz kept saying, you know, Donald keeps, kind of hyper-simplifying things with his rhetoric and, you know, China bad and Islam bad. And you can't just hyper-simplify everything and expect to solve it. And Trump really didn't directly respond to any of that. It was interesting. And I said, too, in fact, my next comment was, I think this is finally about to break open. Rubio is right. Trump says a lot of things others wish they could, and not in a good way. Yeah, that was regarding to Trump's, you know, doubling down, tripling down on his Islam hates us comments, and Rubio saying, you know, I think correctly pointed out, you know, part of Donald Trump's appeal is he just comes out and says things that a lot of people wish they could say. Well, that's not a positive thing necessarily. If a lot of people wish they could say more bigoted things, and part of why they like Trump is because Trump can just come right out and say them and get away with it, and that's what they admire about him. That's not good. That seemed to be what Rubio was saying. And then I said, so much for Trump's pivot. He's tripling down on Islamophobia. Yeah, he's really running with that. You know, he's really, like, he can't even be bothered at this point to say, you know, some of them are good people or whatever. He just basically, his narrative has just become full on Islam hates us. Islam is bad. It's incredible. I said my next comment was Kasich absolutely correct on Islam. Oh, yeah, all three of them, Rubio, Cruz, and Kasich, all have the correct position, which is, of course, not all Muslims are bad. Of course, Islam isn't all bad. There is a problem within Islam in terms of radicalization, but we need to not be demonizing Islam in the macro because we need the cooperation of Islamist countries that are our allies. We need that continued cooperation. That's important to our national security, and Trump just doesn't seem to get it. He just doesn't get it. But I think he probably does get it, but he's willfully acting like he doesn't because he's appealing to the bigoted, hardcore right wing of the party that loves that kind of talk. My next comment, I said, Trump sounds insane at times discussing foreign policy. If Trump were president during the Cuban Missile Crisis, I would not have been born. And then Corey J. Turner, who often comments on my posts, he said, and of course he's watching the debates. He's a Republican. He said, you may have been born. Your parents could have loved a child with 3 arms and a big head. And I just said, touche. I actually do have a big head anyway. I got a big Irish melon, but I do only have 2 arms. So let's see. I said, Cruz is brilliant at mocking Trump. Yeah, Cruz has a way of mocking Trump that's just really just funny. I don't know how to describe it, but apparently I posted that twice. I guess I really meant it. Trump may actually be right on Israel-Palestine. Yeah, just, I understand the problem with the way Trump says it, but I also understand what he's trying to say, I think. I'd like to say more about that, but we're almost out of time. That's complicated stuff. But let's see. I said, and this was something Marco Rubio said, and this was in the news recently, and I said, the story about a VA suicide hotline going to an effing voicemail really does kind of say it all about how we treat our veterans. That's an infuriating story, but unfortunately, it's not at all surprising. I said, Trump is outgunned by Rubio on Cuba. People in audience were actually laughing at Trump's obvious lack of grasp on the issue. By the way, although I do agree with Trump on the fundamentals of the issue, but then some of the things that Trump was saying about, we need to make good deals with Cuba and this and that, it sounded like he didn't really know what he was talking about, whereas Rubio did. Rubio knew actual details about the issue. So Rubio really had Trump outgunned in that way, although I agree with Trump's position, not Rubio's. So I said climate change is a wasted question at a Republican debate. We all know their position. If any of them acknowledge they believe in the science of it, they'll lose automatically. I said, can anyone send me a transcript of one of the speeches from Obama's, quote, worldwide apology tour? I keep looking and can't find it. Yeah, that's a Republican talking point that really annoys me. Trump has a man crush on Putin. Ted Cruz has the most awkward smile of any human alive. And all right, we're out of time. There's a few more, but that's it. Got to go. See you tomorrow night.